Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for Renaissance Periodization, beginner training for hypertrophy video number 6. We'll just let that slide. Who knows what I'm saying? Technique basics and how to teach them. So when we are coaching our beginner clients in those first couple of sessions, days, maybe even weeks, to learn the movement, how are we doing this? Because I said, you have them do sets of roughly 5 reps, nice and easy, coach them on the technique, and they learn. This video talking about what exactly does that mean? What does coaching them on the technique mean? And good news, I have a really good sequence of steps for you that is really, really going to help. First, you want to explain the exercise and its main goal verbally. This does not have to be rocket science and very extensive. You can say, okay, so we're going to be doing squats. And then you say, we're going to have you squat all the way down to a really deep position and come up. And this is going to train your quads and your glutes. That makes sense? And they go, It can just be that complicated. If they want to know more detail, you can always tell them. But start with simple first. Next, potentially even as you do the exercise or right after, you're going to demonstrate the exercise yourself with just 1 or 2 cues. You're going to say, all right, when we're squatting, we're going to keep our chest up. And you're going to want to squat back and down really deep and just come right back up. And as you say that, you do the squat yourself. If you're going to be a good trainer, you're going to have to demonstrate almost every single move, if not every single move yourself, with picture perfect technique, which is why when I see someone who's a personal trainer and they're training just themselves at the end of the day or the beginning of the day, whenever they train, and their technique sucks, I'm like, there's no way he's teaching his clients good technique. He's doing it wrong himself. But if you're doing it correctly yourself, you're one step ahead in the teaching world. Next, you're going to give them lightweight or the broomstick or plastic bar or the bar itself or something like that, super lightweight. This is where this technique learning begins. And you're going to let them try a set, just one at first, for like 5 repetitions. Now, during the set, for every single repetition, you're going to have a sequence of 6 things that happen in order. And you are going to want to cue those in / pay attention to them. This is a lot of cueing. But remember, this is happening really slowly because they're purposefully, you want them to move slow so they hit all the right positions. First, you're going to want to establish a stable base for them. If they're learning how to squat or something like that, you want to make sure their feet are in the right position before they go down at all. You want to make sure they're not on their tippy toes and they're not rocked back on their heels or on their whole foot, and they're standing with their shoulders square and everything looks good. Have them retract their shoulder blades, the whole shebang. Then the next thing you command them to do, not really a cue, is to begin the descent and have a controlled eccentric. And the controlled eccentric is first. So you're going to say something like, all right, I want you to start squatting down, just move your hips back and down, but I want you to do it very slowly. And you're going to be tempted to do it quick, do it super slow. Got it? They're like, okay, they start moving. The thing you're cueing next is the proper path. You've begun to let them move down slowly. Great. But they might move this way, they might move that way, and you really wanted them to move this way. So as they're squatting down or benching or deadlifting or rowing or anything else, you're going to give them a couple of reminders. I say, okay, I want your butt back more, back, excellent, or down, or feet forward, whatever it is the cue is, you're cueing. You have already the beginning of the movement. You have the fact that the eccentric is controlled and slow, and now you're cueing them to get a little bit better into the right position. Again, humongous point here. They're not going to do it right every time. They're sure shit not going to do it right their first time in most cases. So you don't want to have this situation where you're cueing a million things. They're always doing it wrong and they're super confused. Sometimes you don't say anything. So on the first rep, they just kind of do it. On the second rep, you go, okay, now push your butt back a little. Back. Yep, just like that. Perfect. All right. That's great. Next, as the repetition proceeds, you want to cue and encourage a stable bottom position. Some people will squat down and go, and then come back up. A lot of people. They're coming forward on their toes, all this other weird stuff. So you're going to want to say, okay, control that descent, slow descent, butt back. All right. Now pause, almost always with beginners, at the bottom and top of the movement, you're going to cue pauses. That's not going to be something you do forever. Sometimes they get into dynamic squatting, leg pressing, etc. They don't need to pause at the bottom. They don't need to pause at the top. But in early stages of learning, you want to break up the movement into easy to understand chunks of just one thing at a time. Stable base, hit it. Controlled eccentric, the right path. Stop at the bottom, pause. It could be like the lowest they get for that rep. Cue that stable bottom position. Say, okay, pause, hold it, chest up, everything solid. Good, good, good. And then they go up. When they go up, it's enough learning for one rep. When they go down on the second rep and they get all of that a little bit better, you can start cueing depth. On the first rep, I almost never cue depth. They go down, they come up, they look at you, and you go, oh, it's good. Hit it again. On the next one, they do the eccentric control a little better. Their path of descent is a little better because you corrected it on the first rep. People learn really fast. Then you're going to say deeper, 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 and then they're going to stop, and you say, okay, hold it, very good, and come up. So far, we've only gotten to point D here, or point E for depth. We've only started cueing depth. We aren't even worried about the proper path on the ascent yet. So on the first rep, you get through like 2 of these. On the second rep, you may get 2 or 3 or 4. On the third rep, more, etc. By the 5th rep of an exercise, often but not always, it could be by the 5th session because it could take you this long to get even the basics founded. Then eventually when their depth is good and their eccentric control is good and their bar path is good on the eccentric, you start cueing the concentric on the ascent. And I don't use eccentric and concentric usually with beginners. They don't know what that means. Everyone knows what descent and ascent means. So you say, okay, now on the ascent, I want you to drive your hips through as you come up, or I want you to arc the bar over your head as you come up. It's the last part of the movement and also the least important. Once they hit the top, you say, okay, great. And then you cue in another rep by saying, all right, hit the top, stable, steady, shoulders back. Okay. All right. Controlled eccentric, begin down to your sternum, kind of the nipple line. So you're cueing that arc, that proper bar path and descent. At the bottom, you say, okay, stable, very good. Nice and deep, stretch lower, good, pause, and up and arc. So we're cueing point E there, up, proper path and descent. Excellent, way to lock it out, and begin. And every rep, you repeat this process, As you repeat it at first, it looks like this. You won't even get through the whole thing and they'll finish a rep and you'll be like, all right, we got through stable base and not much else. Over multiple reps and sets, even over many sessions, you may get to cueing half and then maybe this whole process. But then over multiple sets and sessions and weeks of training, you'll start to repeat this cueing system often enough that they're like really start doing it well. If they're doing something well without you cueing it, stop cueing it for a little bit. As they keep doing it well, don't bring it up again. Maybe every now and again, remind them to do it even though they're doing it. It's good reinforcement. But then you can start to focus more on the problem areas. At some point, they're going to be in a position where they're rock steady at the top. Their eccentric control is excellent. They don't rush their reps anymore. Their positioning is really great on the way down, but they're coming out of the bottom too fast. Now you can take the next few sets, definitely the next few reps, to really focus on depth. They'll be like, fuck, man, every time I do the squat, you tell me it's not deep enough. That's okay. That's because it's not deep enough, but it's not a big deal. It looks great. We get a little bit better. And over time, you sort of work through this whole 6-point system for every single lift and every single rep. At first, you begin to work through it. You don't even get through all of them. The next stage is you get through all of them every single rep. And then the next stage after is you don't say all of them at the same time. You just focus on the problem areas. After a few weeks, maybe a few months, man, they really know what they're doing. So this system that we're describing of how to cue in the reps, it's really setting up a scaffold for them. It's like training wheels on a bicycle. You set up the scaffold, and at first you don't even get to the top floors of the scaffold. You're just building the bamboo sticks or whatever. And then you have the whole scaffold, and you're really using it the entire time. And then when parts of their structure, parts of their knowledge of where to go in space get better and better, and they can demonstrate, like the analogy as the skyscraper, the bricks get laid, you start to remove parts of the scaffold, and you always come back in there and put it in if it starts to rock, but you remove them and they see how they do by themselves. And then slowly but surely, you're only coming in eventually and cueing the stuff that needs cueing. So if you're coaching an eventually an advanced beginner, Jesus, it's a stupid term, a late stage beginner, early intermediate, At some point, you just kind of cue in anything that needs to be a trouble area or anything that they're doing great you really want to reinforce, or something that they usually do okay, but they tend to, with fatigue, start to kind of not so do it so well. And then you kind of cue it when you have to and say, okay, all right, chest up, very good. But then you kind of just leave well enough alone. This way, we eventually work towards that goal of doing only 1 to 2 cues per set. Now, remember that goal of 1 to 2 cues per set, that's in a working set. These aren't working sets, they're teaching sets. They're not working hard. They'll still get sore because they're beginners, but they're not really trying. They're just trying the technique. So through this scaffolding process, you start out with teaching them a little bit, then a lot, and then you start to pull out what you don't need anymore until you get back to the 1 to 2 cues that matter. It's a pretty cool system. I invented it myself. Will you be my friend? All right. So that set went well. Next set, what do? You repeat with ultralight weight again. You cue all the same things from point number 4 again, stable base, control eccentric, etc., all the way down the line, all the way down to proper path in the ascent. And over time, once you remove the scaffolding, you start to cue only 1 to 2 cues per repetition, as opposed to like the 6 cues you could give per repetition, which at the beginning you might have to give for many of the reps. And eventually it's just 2 to 3 cues per set because you're still learning. So per rep, you give 1 to 2 cues, but 2 to 3 of the same cues per set, really focusing on the stuff that's the problem areas. And in the beginning, in this learning process of ultralight weight, really all of the reps are done pretty damn slow as far as movement velocity. Why? Slow allows you to do mid-flight corrections. If they're pushing this way, but they need to be arcing, when they're pushing like this, you go arc, 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 back to your face. Okay, great. If you do this, you'll say arc, and they're like, what was that? Never mind, you already did it. So you have to go slow. It's a huge advantage. Remember, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. After a while of going slow, you get smooth. After a while of being smooth, you're able to go fast. And then you're an athlete. But it's a long road until then. Not a painful road. It's a fun road. It's a productive road, but you got to take time and patience. There is no rush. Some people, including some trainers, just want to get into it. Let's just get this done. Let's get into the... If you can show me great technique, I'll let you go a little faster and I'll let you put more weight on the bar. And actually, take back that first point. You ain't going fast, motherfucker. There's no rush. It's going to hurt you more to go slow. Go slow. We're not training for the Olympics. Training to get jacked. Slow is totally fine. As the weight gets put on the bar, remember, they do a couple learning sets, and then later in the sessions and weeks in the beginning stages, they do a little bit more weight, and they try some more weight. You still repeat all of the same stuff, all of the same cues, ascent, descent, pause, etc. And as they do a good job of this, or a not so good job of this, you give them feedback in a kind of, dare I say, a formula. Here's my feedback formula. If they do a bad job, you want to do generally a neutral tone of feedback because they're not paying you to be mean. Being mean has been shown in the literature not to really work well to teach people stuff. Meanness is something we have kept from our ancestral days as apes and proto-humans. Mean is conflict. Mean is intimidation. You get mean when you're frustrated, when someone's in your face. Mean demonstrates I am capable of violence, physical violence, and this is your warning. You're not going to hurt your clients. There's no need to be a drill sergeant. They know when they're doing wrong. So what you do is, my preferred method is if they're doing a bad job, let's say they're just rounding their back like crazy or rushing the ascent or 50 other things they could be doing wrong, then you go, okay. Neutral tone, an exploratory tone. And as soon as you say, okay, I see what you're doing, next, in that same neutral tone, you try to say, hey, okay, that was an interesting rep. Not terrible at all. Let's try to keep the chest up a little bit more. So you offer a good thing. So you say, okay, all right, let's try going down a bit slower. And then they either do that or don't, and you iterate the same formula. If they don't do the thing, you go, all right, a little bit slower. Let's try a little bit slower. You're not rewarding them for doing a bad thing because your tone is neutral. Like if you made love to someone and you were like, how was it? They're like, it was definitely sex. You're like, all right, I'm not going to feel so great about that, but maybe I don't feel terrible about it. Like, nothing to feel terrible about. You did just fine. And you're like, oh, okay. But immediately you're like, what do I do to get better at the thing? Right? Maybe, or maybe you just like smoke a cigarette and walk out. I've never had sex with anyone, but that's what I would do if I was a cool person and had friends. And if they do good, if they fix the thing even once, positive tone and positive words to psychologically reward them, not like in a weird, like we need to give you an M&M for every time you do some work on your spreadsheet thing, weird fucking, teaching a dog to do tricks, just verbal encouragement so that they know when they do good, happy feelings come along for the ride. And you don't have to be over the top kindergarten teacher like, oh my God, Connor, this is the best finger painting anyone's ever done. Nah. You say, hey, good job. Great, very good. Do another rep. All right. I see that. Let's try slowing it down a little bit. Let's get the elbows back a bit. All right. Good, very good. Elbows back. Excellent. And you just keep walking the line between when they don't do so well, neutral tone, and I hear you tone, replace with, okay, let's try this other thing. When they do good, you say, good, very good. And you probably want to cue it again. All right, next rep, let's do the same thing. Chest up. Awesome. Excellent. I'm going to leave it to you and your own personality to fill in the blanks of how neutral your neutral is or how positive your positive is. If you're just the most excitable person in the world, hey, be cheery. I love it. It's great. It's not my bang, but like awesome. Do your shit. Neutral for you can sound like almost cold and negative to some extent, or your neutral can be like still kindergarten teacher, pretty damn positive. I just want you to know that there's a spectrum there. You want to be more neutral towards the not so great things and more positive to the better things. And that way you both offering technical cues and psychological cues to steer that person into the direction of doing a great job. And that's really what it's all about. And lastly, especially when you have to no longer walk them through every step slowly, as they're doing more organic sets and reps where they're moving dynamically through the thing, you're going to stay focused on just a few cues at a time. As a matter of fact, per any given set and even per any given session, you're going to pick some cues that they do the worst, and you're going to say, I'm really going to focus on correcting these. And you're going to pick the cues which they're starting to demonstrate the most improvement with. And you're going to really positively reinforce those such that when they do great stuff, you can say, hey, that was great. But you can really leave great well enough alone. The stuff that they're really starting to understand and do better, really cue it positively. Like, hey, that chest is really coming up. I love it. And the stuff that they're not doing so well, just one or two things, because they could be doing 10 things wrong. Pick the one or two worst offenders and say, let's try to get those knees to be a little bit more out than in. All right. Out than in. All right. Okay. Got that rep. A little bit more out. Try to push your knees out as you go down. Got it. Very good. Much better. That's kind of the tone and the direction we want to take. And as the client trains more and more with you and gets better and better at technique, the situation starts to turn into really two things that you say. You're either giving cues because you're saying they're doing a good job and they need to be kind of reminded this is the thing you should be doing with a cue that's not real stable for them yet, or they're doing not such a great job and a cue means like fix it, or you just say great job or amazing or doing well or I love you, please marry me. Stuff you say to your clients that you train. But on a serious note, you're either now cueing or you're saying nice things. So the gym experience to your clients is a combination of two things. Either they're learning with a positive, at worst, neutral experience, or they're being verbally reinforced as doing a great job. If I'm coming to a personal trainer and my two experiences there with them, either I'm learning or I'm being told I'm awesome, man, I'm coming back. And I'm learning as much as I can, and I'm being as awesome as I can. For those of you who may now be thinking, look, Dr. Mike swears on his YouTube channel. I thought he did like jujitsu or something. Look, it looks like a triceratops. I thought he was a tough guy. What's this kindergarten nonsense, man? We got to get at these clients. We don't. Here's why. training hurts. If you push your clients hard enough in training with just cues and just positive reinforcement and the occasional bullshit joke when they get really advanced, getting under their skin a little bit, but mostly for beginners, especially beginners, definitely even intermediates, either neutral or positive, the only thing you have to say that will color in the rest of that circle to give them enough negative experience so they can be hardcore like you thought we were going to coach you here is the thing they don't want to hear the most in this world when they're up against the wall. And that's, all right, one more rep. Even if you say it like a kindergarten teacher, they're like, fuck, I'm going to die. I'm in pain. I'm in agony. Get me out. Nope. One more rep. You don't have to yell at them. You just say one more rep. And the pain is standard. I think a lot of people that get into that drill sergeant shit, their training maybe isn't hard enough to actually hurt the clients, so they have to berate them verbally to give them that negative experience. You're not there to raise this person. You're not there to bully them. You are there to administer a stimulus and to teach them technique, and also to make them as happy as they can in that regard. The cues do the technique. The verbal encouragement makes them nice and happy. And guess what takes care of the stimulus? The stimulus. The reps themselves. And they do so much fucking pain that in order for the client to have a decent experience overall, the least you can do is be neutral and the most you can do is be ultra positive. That's my personal take. If you're real negative all the time, clients don't want to show up because it's negative bullshit and they're in pain. If I'm in pain, the last shit I want to hear is fucking negative. When I'm in pain, I either want to hear neutral corrections or I want to be lauded and praised for my excellent efforts. Then I'm coming back. Then people ask me, hey, should I sign up with that one coach? And they're like, yeah, here's amazing. I'm like, why? Like, it's just like awesome and kind and encouraging. And I learn a lot. And they're like, all right, but like, I need a tough coach. And then the client's like, trust me, just show up. Don't make sure your will is filled out. And they're like, what? That's a joke. It's a joke the coach also makes. You're going to die. Let the training be hard. You be soft. Together, beautiful thing. See you guys next time.